Hello and welcome back. My name is Deborah Peters. Thank you for joining me at the Deborah Peters Show. It is absolutely a pleasure to have you here with me today. I've got an amazing topic that you're going to absolutely love. It's all about relationships, particularly the relationships between an adult daughter and her father. I know we can all benefit from making that transition from that hierarchical structure of the parent knows more and is the one in charge to now run a level playing field with our adult offspring. But before I get into that, I wanted to just share with you a little bit about this show and why I created it. I've been watching for many years what's happening in society and in the consciousness of humanity. I've been teaching neuroscience since long before it was sexy. And I just saw that there was this distinct shift happening. I'm probably not delivering a whole lot of a different message than I was 20 years ago. It might be a little more sophisticated with a little more science behind it. But at the end of the day, it's the same message. And that is about being conscious. What's consciousness? Consciousness is all about how you relate to yourself, the relationship you have with you, and being aware. Self-aware comes from that relationship where you pay attention to what you actually say to yourself. You notice your beliefs, you connect the dots between your emotions and your experiences in life so that you never feel like a victim. So I've basically broken this show down into 5 different categories, which I feel cover pretty much every area of your life: health, wealth, business, relationships, and self-expression. So today I have amazing guests. It's a father-daughter duo. They run a business together. They've been through it all. They've had the ups and downs that most of us have raising kids. And I think sometimes we all look back and go, why did I do that? But nonetheless, Jacklyn and Jamie Purvis, thank you so much for being here today.
We're so excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, just like I want to just really light some things up here because, you know,
Oh boy.
I know, right? Um, I have to shut my window. Forgive me. I've got like lawnmower guys out here. Never had that happen before. Well, I've had lots of noise interruptions. I've just never left the screen. But how do you know, right? How do you know when they're going to show up? Yeah, I think, I was a single mom and I raised my daughter by myself and going through the transition of our relationship transitioning from traditional, I'm the mom, I make all the decisions because I have all the responsibility on my shoulders, to, this is a human being that can make their own decisions, can think for themselves, and maybe even more conscious than what I am being in this moment because they don't have all the programming yet that I would have as an adult. So that was challenging. The other thing that was challenging, because it forced me to wake up. Like, Jamie, don't you think that being a parent is probably the best personal growth workshop you can ever experience in your life?
The one that comes without a textbook, without a roadmap, and we evolve and figure it out as we go. But absolutely, it's about me as an individual, and then along the way you realize you don't want to screw it up for your kid, right? So becoming aware that I didn't want to pass along a lot of the beliefs that I had, that I was given, that I lived with, and even that in itself is a journey of self-discovery and awareness.
Yeah, and I did the same thing, and now that I look back on it, I think I might have actually and it came from a good place because I grew up with a lot of challenges in our family dynamic. I've been writing a book about it, and it really, I think, comes down to some family curses where there's generational programming that was never released or never dissolved or even acknowledged. Let's start there, like being acknowledging that we've got these really debilitating negative patterns of thinking and feeling and relating in our family, that's a whole step in and of itself. And then actually getting past that is like, that's another thing that takes work. And I think that I was so focused on getting through those family patterns so that my daughter didn't adopt them, that I might have actually done too much for her. You know, I might have actually, yeah, I guess that's probably the best way to put it. Like, I think I might have bent over way too far backwards trying to make everything good. And that can, in and of itself, can hinder their growth and can cripple their self-reliance, where they feel like victims all their lives, and that, you know, as a parent, you really messed my life up and you owe me an apology kind of nonsense, right? So I'm gonna toss the baton to you on that one, Jacklyn, because that was loaded right there.
In terms of what I sort of picked up as a child.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say, as you were talking about it, I think the one thing, I was the firstborn, so very, you know, my parents were very protective. I had a lot stricter rules growing up
Sure.
than my sister did, and something that I realized later on in life from going through that is I was very afraid as a kid. I was afraid of getting in trouble. I was very fearful of authority figures, and I had to do a lot of therapy later on in life to realize, like, that goes away. People should
Sure.
also be respecting you in situations. So there was a lot to work through in terms of, yeah, it was definitely fear-based for me that
Yeah.
I had to really rewire and first become aware of, and then build new habits around and release it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big, because that, I think the first step there is the awareness. And sometimes becoming aware can be really painful. At least that was my experience with my mom and even my grandmother. There was a lot of matriarchs in our family, and there wasn't really, in my hindsight, you know, there wasn't enough masculinity, and so it was really, that part was really challenging, is becoming self-aware. Because for me, I had this tendency to want to take it all on and fix it, you know, for everybody. So letting that go, yeah, that was really challenging for sure. Absolutely.
And that awareness piece you just said, it showed up differently for me at the beginning too. It was first just awareness of how I was feeling and like self-regulating emotions,
Yeah.
and then the awareness to change. But those came at completely different points. And before that awareness to change came and you're just sitting in it, it can be like really heavy too.
It can be, yeah. And when all this was going on, Jamie, did you have any idea of the kinds of emotional turmoil
Well,
your daughter was going through?
what we caused?
Well, I don't know. I think that's too heavy of a burden to say what we caused. It's like,
It is.
you don't know. I mean, we all do the best we can with the resources we have.
Yeah, and hearing Jacklyn just articulate that right now, and you know, you connect the dots and you think back, okay, being overprotective, always trying to manage the situations, and you see how, you know, that can show up later in life, right? So not, you know, we want the best for our kids, obviously. I think everybody does, and just knowing that we did the best we could, and I think when we transitioned into this partnership together, the opportunity of looking at Jacklyn not as a child,
Yes.
looking at her as this young, powerful woman in front of me. And it was
Right.
like an awakening, Deborah. It was just progressive until it was an immediate decision, awareness that it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time where it was a level playing field. So I know we've talked a little bit about in the past about this relationship, and
Sure.
it, you know, it just, I stepped back and put ego aside and realized, okay, if this journey together was going to work, it was a journey, it was a partnership.
And that's the key. Labels are really important. You know, how we describe something creates the thing, because then that how we describe something is actually how we relate to it. And how we relate to it is actually how it shows up. I mean, there's no escaping that. So at some point, there must have been some sort of moment, or maybe a series of aha moments, where you said to yourself, my daughter is different than I originally perceived her, because now she's grown up, or now she thinks different, or relates to herself, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just what happened in you for that aha moment for you to realize that.
I think it was a progression of years in my previous life, my previous role, running a company and having a lot of younger people around us. Was the beginning of this journey where, when Jacklyn and I started working together, she was volunteering. She was helping me. She was helping me with marketing, and just taking that step back, thinking and just noticing her. And literally I just feel it. I can see it and feel that moment in time where I just looked at her and realized, okay, I'm not seeing her as my daughter. I'm seeing her as this person
that's contributing to the growth of the company,
that's powerful, that has so many great ideas, and realize that, okay, I'm not seeing myself in that same capacity that I have to tell her what to do. I'm now able to listen. And she was just, it was just incredible. Yeah. It was just that moment in time, though. I just remember where I was looking at her. She was talking about something. She's so articulate, and you know, that puppy dog look where you're all of a sudden just, it's like,
yeah,
wow. It was like that wow moment.
Did you feel that, Jacklyn? Did you pick up on that? Like, were you able to perceive that?
I actually think it was a specific situation, Jamie, because I remember you saying something to me afterwards. And it was a project that we were working on. And I just put like a bunch of time into it. I was really excited about it. And I remember him saying something about it afterwards, about like, of course, the parenting side, like, I'm proud of you. And then like, this can be really big. We can do something really cool with this and help a lot of people. So I actually do remember that specific moment. And I think for me coming into that, it was also moving from that child to that, like from a parent to partner.
Yeah.
It was learning to have my own voice in that situation and taking responsibility. Like, as much as I can say, okay, I grew up with all these things, there does come a point where you have to take responsibility for your life and put in work to move forward. And that was a huge piece of it that has to be done if you want that dynamic, in my opinion, to shift.
For sure. Because there's a responsibility for all of us in every relationship to show up our that's a tongue twister, to show up our authentic selves. Because if we're not showing up authentic, then we're really not in our power. And if we're not in our power, then we basically leave the door open for anyone we're relating with to perceive us the way they want to perceive us, not the way we want to be perceived. Right. And so rather than it be, you know, you're the parent, my life is a mess now because you didn't do your job right when I was growing up. So therefore, you know, you owe me an apology. And it's like, well, wait a minute, but you're an adult now. You know, like what happens to you as a child is one conversation. Continuing to perpetuate your victimhood as an adult is another conversation that adult child has to take responsibility for.
And it's empowering to do that.
Yeah, it is. Because then it levels out the quality of the other relationships you have into your life. So do you think that since you've, let's call it, leveled the playing field in your relationship with your dad, by the way, do you ever call him dad?
Not at work, I do. Not
at home you do?
Calls, I do.
Okay, that's cool.
Usually,
Just curious.
So.
No, I'm just curious. So yeah, I mean, once you level the playing field with your parent, then you get to really be you. And that's not something you ask permission for. that's something you have to step into, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes time too. It's not like a switch and that's it. You have to continually practice it and continue to develop your voice. And I think that's something that's really strengthened our relationship, is learning to have those tough conversations when you need to have them. And they're
Yeah.
not always comfortable. It's not like every time it's easy. It's at the beginning anyways. I used to like prepare. I don't know if I ever told Jamie that, but I used to like prepare, like, what do I need to get across
Yeah,
No,
sure.
you
to make
didn't.
sure that, you know, just the boundaries are clear and the expectations are clear. I need to think through that process, and I still do sometimes, like not just with Jamie, but in a lot of conversations. It
I was just going to
helps me
say, I
work
mean,
through it.
yeah, that's no different than any conversation, really. You know, because when we're dealing with personalities and everybody has their own personality traits, rather than ask that person to dumb down who they are so you can feel better about yourself, it's about raising your vibrations so that you feel better about yourself before you engage with anyone. And then you hold that good feeling, self-awareness throughout the entire conversations or relationship dynamic. Because it's really, you know, I think this is like a pet peeve I have. That in particular that's going on today, the narrative is that, you know, you've put me down, you've made my life bad, you've held me back, you're the bad guy, I'm the victim. It's like, nobody, well, first of all, nobody's a victim, because it's all about consciousness. It's all about who you're being with yourself and how you project that out into the world that gets mirrored back to you. So if you don't like what's being mirrored back, then just change your perception of who you are, and then you'll get a new mirror.
I think it's taking that responsibility, right, Deborah? Whether for myself as a father in this situation, as a man, and taking responsibility for what I've done, haven't done, said, and then claiming the power moving forward. And that's what I've so appreciated about Jacklyn is I don't think I've consciously played the dad Trump card, although I know it's come through.
Sure.
And I love when Jacklyn will claim her power and fight for what she believes to be true and to be right. And at the moment,
that's the cool part.
Yeah, it is. And it's allowing her to do that and being able to listen to her. And I would do that with anybody. So
I was just going to say that.
You have to, right? And I think the father-daughter piece in our life now, and probably 95% of the time, Jacklyn, isn't, I see her as her. I see her as who she is. And she's always going to be my daughter.
Well, and I was going to say that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think you should ever apologize for playing the father trump card, because that's a normal, it's who you are. You are her father. Yeah. And so that instinct is always going to be there, and apologizing for it or dumbing it down to make it easier for her actually cripples her from standing in her own power. And because there might be times when you play that card that it's of a massive benefit. Your father-daughter relationship has not stopped. It will always be that first.
Yeah.
And there may be times when you play that card where she doesn't need it, but Jacklyn, that's up to you to let him know
to step into it, right?
Yeah, I'm good here.
And that was it. It was me learning to do that, because I didn't at the beginning. And then you build that, resistance, and when you're not putting a boundary in place, you end up getting resentful about it. So I needed to learn how to create that for myself. And at that point in my life, I needed to learn how to do that across the board. It was every friendship, relationship. Like, I was just learning how to do it. And it definitely came up with Jamie because we were business partners. We were talking all the time. So I saw it there greatest, but it was across the board.
Yeah. Well, and I can so relate to that. I mean, we all go through these growth periods in our life that are never ending, right? To the minute our body checks out off the planet, we're still growing spiritually. I sent out this campaign recently through one of the business social media groups, and I got a message back from two different two people unrelated to one another. Both were gentlemen, and one was in his 80s, and he's like, I've done everything in my life. I really don't think I need to learn anything more. And I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. let this be what I never become. Okay. This was
Makes
put
me
in my
itchy.
path. I know, it's like
done. I've got it all. I'm
yeah,
good.
I'm 80. I know everything. And then this other one was this fellow had retired. And I just, the first one I dismissed and I ignored because I was like, I don't know, whatever. I don't have time for like what can you say?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Since he already knows everything, there's probably nothing I can say. But to the second guy, I was compelled. I felt compelled. And I just said, regardless of what you do with your time, your consciousness is always expanding. And it's always worth the investment to raise the bar in your spiritual maturity.
That's the
had
being
Mic
part.
drop.
That's the being part, right? Like, how do we ever stop? Like, there's always so much more. We can always become so much more.
Yes.
Like that's the essence of life, in my opinion. And watching this, it's just, I'm really reflecting as Deborah, you're talking and Jacklyn's sharing ideas and her feelings is just watching us evolve.
Yeah.
So it's this dynamic now. So it's us and what's possible.
Yeah.
And I feel invigorated. I'm excited. I was stepping into this journey to basically slow down. And now here we are thinking, how big can we build it?
Yeah, because that's the social program.
Yeah.
The social construct is you should be tired. You should be uninspired. You should be wanting to go play because you've denied yourself adventure and happiness all your life because you've been slogging it out. I mean, that's something I'm really working on right now is the slave mentality. And I've worked through a lot of the slave mentality. Like I said, when I was a kid, I would take people's stuff on and try to fix things for people.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really moved through large chunks of that slave mentality. And I remember just like not even that long ago, maybe just 2-3 years ago, still kind of caught up in that where I was had closed my physical office in Beverly Hills and I was working from home and all these people would be out moving fast, rushing to work and honking and just doing what they do. And Beverly Hills is like the honking capital of the world. I swear to God. I think that everyone that has a Beverly Hills driver's license should have their horn dismantled because it's just obnoxious. But what it would do is it would trigger in me, hey, you should be out there too. You should be like, because I did in the beginning of my business growth, I was on the freeway every day, thinking I needed to be at a 7 a.m. breakfast meeting to get business. And it's just all such a structured construct that is deeply programmed into our minds. So even letting go of that, that's a dynamic that I feel supports this hierarchy in adults, because you're both adults. And so how do you unwind the hierarchy model, which is a slave model, and get into more of a collaborative thinking, synergistic, emotive process between the two of you that inspires you to jump out of bed every day because you're creating something cool together.
It's that awareness, right?
Yeah.
First of all, of what's going on. Why am I thinking the way I'm thinking? Why am I acting? Understanding that, my programming that's been impressed upon me from when I was a kid that we then transferred to Jacklyn.
Yeah, of course you did. Like
right?
Good parents. Yeah.
As parents, all parents do. So we love our kids, but you're getting what I have and I'm not even aware of it. And then being able to take a step back and realizing, okay, that's what it is. Let's put judgment aside. Where are we going? And then getting clarity of where we're going in the future together.
Yeah.
And now we're creating this journey together, and that's fun. And it's
Yeah.
just literally fun. And as you were talking about that slave mentality, I had an email from somebody the other day, and his first question is, how's the grind?
I hate that
And
word. I
oh
just
my
hate
God.
that
And
word. It just
Deborah,
grates on my nervous system.
in the past, I would have likely just replied to it, and I didn't. And I just let it be. And then I replied back, I'm like water, and I'm flowing, and I'm just in this state. And that's how I feel right now. It's just we're on this journey, and I did the grind. I would outwork everybody. That's what I did. And
Yeah.
I won that way. And it was exhausting and a lot of work.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do now with Jacklyn is reinforce that pattern.
Right.
And that's where I see her. She is so much further aware than I was, or more aware at her age than I was at her age.
But she should be. I mean, let's look
Right?
at this. Let's unpack this.
Yeah.
She should be, because you raised her to be more. You know, you raised her, you parented her with, whether you were aware of it or not, consciously, on some level, what it sounds like to me is that you parented her to move beyond your current familial program. So you did a good job, Dad. You know?
There was two of us. I'll take 50% of it.
That helps. That helps. That definitely helps. But do you know what I'm saying? It's like for you, Jacklyn, it's like it's a leg up. And I think we should expect that. I remember one time there was a gathering at my daughter's house, and there was in-laws, and there was a whole bunch of us there. And my daughter said to me at one point, she's like, I'm living your dream. And I'm like, no, honey, you're living your dream. And that was always my goal, was for you to pick up the ball and run with it and create more higher level conscious experiences on the material plane. And that's what we do as parents. I think there's just a small percentage of parents that hold their kids back out of jealousy or competition or whatever.
Yeah, we see that, I think, in the world, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. So what did it for you, Jacklyn, what was the turning point? What made you have that aha click to step into your greatness? Because that's really what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A big component, so it started definitely with before finding that voice, because at that point we were already working together. It was learning to be vulnerable and open and just have deeper connections and conversations with Jamie. And it was different from a parenting aspect, because it wasn't just like, what are you doing next? Because, you know, you should be doing A, B, C, and D. It wasn't like that at all. It was just curiosity and interest, and there wasn't any judgment involved in it. And as that continued over time, it just started deepening our relationship and changing the dynamic of it.
Nice.
In addition to, yeah.
So how is that then now, and this is a question for both of you, how is this breakthrough then led into healthier relationships in other areas of your life?
For me, it would definitely be a willingness to go deeper with people. I look at that from a friendship perspective, and also ability to communicate, and that boundary piece is huge. Once I learned how to do that, I saw a hugely different improvement in the relationships around me, because I got clear on probably what I needed from it. And I think a lot of us go unconsciously, like, unaware about what we need in the first place anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because we don't know. I mean, we haven't even, and I'm generalizing, but to make a point, I think we haven't even explored the depth of our own relationship with ourselves, you know? I mean, I'm still learning me. Every day I learn me. And that'll never stop. Like, sometimes I'm like, wow. Especially if I look back on something I've written, you know, I've kept all my journals to create a book with, or books. And sometimes I'll read through journals that I wrote when I was 20, and I'm like, wow, I was really wise, you know? Because I think it's a human thing to think that because we're a certain age of any age than we bigger or more than we were before. Now we're actually smarter and wiser than we were before. And I've learned from going back through and looking in previous journals that just wasn't true. Like some of the stuff I wrote when I was 16, I'm like, wow, I could use that. That was really good, you know?
And what you said there, that piece, thinking of that through, as much as it was the willingness and the boundaries that deepened other relationships, first thing that actually changed everything was I took a lot of self-discovery in myself.
Yeah.
So what you said just triggered that, reminded me of that anyways, because that's where it started. You can't put boundaries up and all these things for other people if you don't know what you need in the first place. And that's where you figure it out.
Yeah, because you don't even know what the boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was the turning point for you, and how's it affecting other relationships?
Saying no for me was a big one. Saying no to, I was a yes person, personality, like want everyone to like me, dealt with that and for many years, and just took on a lot of responsibility. And then at a point in time, remember somebody telling me, one of my mentors and coaches at the time, saying no is a complete sentence.
It is.
And that
so
was
you
it.
Did you have a pattern of justifying or explaining?
It would show up, definitely.
Yeah.
And just automatically saying yes. So whatever somebody presented to me, I would say yes. And then I think clarity and understanding what made me happy, it became easier to say no. And then recognizing the pattern. And then I began to say no to more and more people. I say yes to opportunities, doesn't mean I'm going to pursue every opportunity. And I look back and reflect in life, and how where I am today was by saying yes to a whole bunch of opportunities along the way. My last probably 15 years was getting really clear, saying no. And as I did that, I became more focused, and led me down this journey that I'm on, that created and became our journey, which I did not see, Deborah. When I was on creating this in my mind of what I wanted to do, this was not in front of me. It was.
Well, that's the cool part. You know, the cool part is you came up, you brought through, you were like a conduit, like a portal for this concept or idea, service, whatever, to come through your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And you said yes to it because it felt right, without even a thought of how, which is the key to every success. When you don't get caught up in the how. And then I have a question for you. When you don't get caught up in the how, and you just allow the flow to present itself and show you and guide you with whom, where, how, like all that stuff, that's always kind of been something I've taught, but at the same time as I'm teaching it in a seminar, I'm like, girl, you need to take your own advice here, you know? But yeah, so then, you know, it turned out to be Jacklyn. And if you take the label off of who she is to you in your life, it just makes good sense that it's she and not someone else, right?
Absolutely. And to experience this journey together.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a fairy tale in a way, you know. Here we are, and I always remember when Jacklyn was young, you know, before going to bed, we had an affirmation, and is I'm destined to be great. And just building that and living through that. And again, Deborah, like you said, like at one point in time, it's like, okay, I'm stepping into this now. And yeah, it is a fairy tale. It really is. I'm always telling people, like, hey, I can't believe it. I'm the lucky one in this journey. And to watch it evolve and grow in her. And now I want to participate and help her any way I can, share my misfortunes and my trials and tribulations to save her time.
For sure.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, I was going to ask you, when you're talking about not saying no enough, saying yes a lot. So for me, it was a dichotomy for me, where in my life, I said yes too much to the wrong things because I was wanting to please people. I didn't want to be abandoned. I had huge abandonment issues from my childhood that I needed to heal. And I didn't know that that's what was being triggered until I knew. You know, you don't know what you don't know until you know.
That's right.
And then the flip side of that was I said no too much to things that could have perhaps expanded my world, my life, my money, my relationships, whatever. So it's about discernment. And I'm wondering if you think that's a cultural code.
Jacklyn?
In terms of like if it's culturally something that's the reason why it happens?
Well, it's culturally a program. It's a cultural code that exists within your whatever culture you grew up in. And that could be an extended culture. It doesn't have to be your immediate family. It could be the region you live in. It could be the country you grew up in. It could be a lot of places, a lot of things, right?
Oh,
But
I
I'm
think
wondering
so.
if, yeah,
100%. I experienced similar ones. Mine were more so in terms of feeling like I needed to be perfect in everything,
oh
which
God,
in
that
hindsight
one.
created all the anxiety that comes with that took years to break. But it's, you know, being brought up as a little girl anyways, we're always told to be good, do this, be happy, smile more, like all of these little things that's part of society that, you know, people don't think twice about. And that wasn't even per se from my parents or anything, but those are just norms that we say.
That was a cultural code then for sure.
Definitely.
Percolating in the background, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of these cultural codes that have propped up society for eons practically. And being able to identify them in order to dissolve them and replace them with something more conscious is it's really that's a big journey right there. Rather than make somebody wrong for it, you know, it's just they evolve. You know how gossip starts, right? It starts off as this little thing, and then by the time it gets told 20 times, it's a bigger thing, and then pretty soon it's a colossal thing. And that's how cultural codes take a hold of our being and hold us hostage in this stuck reality where we can't seem to get past these invisible blocks.
It's programming, right? It's definitely
Yeah.
cultural. There's a lot of where you grow up culturally, where you grow up. It's all this programming that's impressed upon us
It is.
at such a young age that we're not even consciously aware of what's going on from religion and being raised a certain way. And then just, if you're not ever going to question it, then what's ever going to change, right? And then we pass that on.
True.
And I think that questioning and having that faith in yourself and self-image and raising that and growth helps you question things. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And that gets you past the 9-to-5 slave mentality.
Yeah.
One of the things I've discovered is that I may be productive between 9 and 5, or I may not. And letting myself, right? And letting myself not punch the clock out of not wanting to be wrong, like the wrongness. I think that's a big theme in society, is the wrongness of things if you do something a little different. And
I
so,
feel that a lot.
Yeah, right. In terms of productivity.
Oh my gosh. And I think it's from my experience was moving from the corporate space where we were billing clients to the 15-minute mark. So everything, you were obsessed with time and expected to work over 9 to 5, by the way, and then going into having your own business. And I do a lot more of the creative component, and
Sure.
you can't always schedule that. There's
Yeah.
some nights that it's 10 o'clock and I'm like, oh, it's rolling, I have to do this now.
I know.
However, if I try to do 9 to 5 and it's not rolling, I've had to learn it's okay to walk away right now because I can't force this out.
Yeah, my thing is nature walks. Like that's how I
Mhm.
reset. And I had a speech to give last night, and so like my day took off. I didn't even get to meditate. It just started, and I'm working multiple time zones right now, and it was like that, and it was like 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm famished, and I haven't written my speech, and I need to shower. Like all these, it's all stacked up, right? And I'm like, okay, I can go for a walk. I can grab a bite to eat. I can go for a walk, and I can write my speech on my walk. And then I can come back and I can put some bullets on paper and shower up, and I'm out the door. And allowing that, created the space for what I needed to get done without this whole TikTok mentality of, it's got to be done in a certain way or it's not right. There's something wrong. And I think that's what your relationship is all about, is you've let go of the wrongness of the way a father-daughter adult relationship needs to look. And you've created something that's very healthy and nurturing to both of you.
And I do have to give a kudos to Jamie for that, because I realized recently from talking to some friends that this isn't always the case. And
Right.
he's always held space for me. And, we have our moments where it's not always ideal. Like, it's not like it's perfect.
Sure.
But the difference is we will always talk about it afterwards and we'll communicate through it. And that second conversation, moving on from that, is amazing. And
Yeah.
I realize that that isn't common, because he always is open. Like, he holds space for me to have a voice, and that ego is released. So I'm very grateful for that, because I do recognize that it's probably not as common.
That's really cool. So we've got some comments. So Sammy says, the first 3 years of our lives, we hear the word no 30,000 times, and yes, less than 10,000 times. I did some research, some neuroscience research for a course I put together. And to that point, I discovered that we have these two neurons that fire, D1 and D2. So there's nothing spectacular about the naming. So D1 and D2, and I can't remember which order it is, but suffice to say that, let's say D1 is the positive neurons and D2 is the negative. We actually have more negative neurons, negative oriented, energetic, like as in a magnet or a battery. So we have more negative energetic neurons than we do positive. And I wonder if it comes from, if this is an epigenetic thing as well, because 0 to 7 are the imprint years, and that's where our psychosis is formed, right? So it's true. Like, how often do we say no to a child just out of sheer protection?
Oh, protection. Don't touch that. Put that down. No,
Yeah.
no. I always say the best salespeople in the world are kids, because they're relentless, and eventually they'll
Thank
get their
God.
yes.
Yeah. They'll do
But
anything
oh,
as long as it takes till they wear you down and they get the yes.
but no is
That's it.
definitely more prevalent.
It
It's an
is.
interesting point too. We had a call recently that we were talking about, as an adult, when we set goals, how is it closer to pain or to pleasure?
Sure.
And a lot of people still operate like, I am more motivated when it's away from pain versus towards pleasure. So
Well,
I'm curious if that stems from that, right?
I
It's just
know.
something we're brought up with constantly.
Yeah, and that's the way I was brought up. We were farmers. So you didn't get to do anything until the hard stuff was done, which teaches you a good level of discipline, about not over leveraging yourself until you've got things in place to the resources you need. But the problem with that is farm work is never done.
It never ends.
Never ends. And so sometimes we'd be rolling up to an event that we'd intended to go to for months. And then at the 12th hour, we couldn't go because something went sideways on the farm. And that to me was like that was to me was like psychologically damaging. It took me a long time. No, it's not funny. It took me a long time to get over that. You know, I really thought it was like I was starting to take it personal, that it was a setup. You know, we're just doing this to mess with you.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a while to heal that one, but you know, it's these societal constructs have always fascinated me, like age, which is really a big part of your relationship dynamic. I mean, do you think we'd have this conversation if you were 10, Jacklyn? Probably not.
Probably not. I had to
No.
change a lot in terms of how I looked at it from
Sure.
an age perspective as being the younger one. Of like being, it's okay to say when you don't like something. It's okay to not fight back per se, but it's going to come back to having your voice with that. Like that took me a long time to get to that point.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that.
and if you didn't know how old you were, you didn't know your age, how old would you be? One of my mentors always, and as he got older, age for him was a number, right? Like we've all heard that, but I remember him one day saying, well, if you didn't know how old you were, how old would you be? And if we're conscious and we understand this connection, really,
I think, yeah, you know, I love that question. And I think for me to, if I were to answer it, I would say it really depends on the moment. Because I'm a lot of people, a lot of awarenesses, a lot of different kinds of maturity rolled into one unit. And I'm going to pull out, those are resources for me.
mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pull out in the moment whatever serves the moment. And so, you know, I can go from in a day, like, let's say facilitating a leadership retreat in the morning to riding my bike in the afternoon and swinging on the swings very easily. Because that's how I decompress. It's just like I go do something that makes me feel free. And so that's two different aspects of me. But you can roll it all together, right? And you can be, that's the key. It comes down to the being. Like, who are you being?
Yep.
Who are you being? Yep. And is it really you? Or is it some other program that's been taught to you that you should accept because they accepted it? They don't know why they accepted it, but they accepted it from someone who also didn't know why they accepted it. Right?
Yeah, this being piece is what we named our company. Strategic.
Do tell. Yeah. Right? And then we're going to say goodbye. So give us your...
Time flies.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, the whole be part of life, right? Like just being. Who are you being? Whose life are you being? Whose life are you living? Mm-hmm. And my journey, I was raised with, you know, you set a goal, and when you strive and you put everything into it, do all the work, then you'll be successful.
Yeah.
Then you'll claim the prize, right? And quickly realized after, well, not quickly, years of it, realizing that, you know what, this isn't right. There's more to this.
Yeah.
And then starting to live in and acting as if I've already achieved the success. So success happens quick when you can make a decision, use your imagination, and just live it. Live it with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
And as we're doing that, I did it in my previous world and hit tremendous success. And then Jacklyn and I are really focused on living it and modeling it for others.
That's cool.
So when we live it every day and imagine what is it going to be like, writing out my affirmations, writing out my future life today, not knowing how at all I'm going to achieve it. Doesn't matter, as you said, Deborah, the how will show up.
That's right.
So stepping into it and imagining it, I think, is a key piece that a lot of times kids have it. And then at some point in time, society and pressure squashes it and we stop living as a child and imagining. So that's what we really focus on for ourselves, and just every day becoming more than we were yesterday and being more than we were in the past, and stepping into that future life and future self and future identity is
and
really
just rolling
key.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your URL? I'm taking you guys to coaching.
Our website?
Yeah.
It's bedohavemovement.com. You can find everything that we do on there. We do have a free quiz as well that really helps with that self-discovery process. So it's a great place to start.
Nice. That's fantastic. And so you're international, Canada and the US. That's cool.
Yeah, we've expanded into Europe. Amazing part with technology today, you never know where it's going to take you. And
I know, right?
oh, and it's what I'm creating literally every day when I write out my future life, my future self. So it's a worldwide business, and we can do it remotely, and it's just an incredible place to be, and awesome to connect with people that are striving to become more and have the courage to live their life at the highest level possible, follow those dreams that are there that maybe we've suppressed, and imagine if it was possible. Like, just start there and
Just
there, let it be, and let it out.
Imagination, that's the key to everything.
Yep.
And don't let anybody ever tell you to dumb that down, because that's your key to freedom.
Yeah, it's how do you keep that with time? I think that's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you guys on. Thank you for being so vulnerable and just rolling with it and sharing your experiences with people so that they can take something away. I mean, relationships in life are everything. If our relationships are upside down, I mean, things don't go too well. And we're social animals. We need to spend time relating with other people. So I think there's been a lot of really good nuggets here for all kinds of relationships, not just parental, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you for having us. That was my intention today, is really just sharing our experience in hopes that somebody else will be open and willing in the relationships that are close to them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I think as we move through our life experiences, and we discover more and more of who we want to be, then those relationships are that reflection, and we can really calibrate how things are coming along just by how people are showing up around us. I think that's really powerful. And to never take that personal. It's just it's just information.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Deborah, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was amazing. You were incredible, and appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And give you your URL for your website one more time.
It's bedohavemovement.com.
Brilliant. Yeah. So look up Jamie and Jacklyn online, you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking. Drop a comment, because it really helps build the channel. And most importantly, remember to stay alert, stay aligned, and stay awake.